Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles, and today I'm joined by Mike. Mike's a collector of Michael Jordan cards, and we're going to talk NBA, Michael Jordan, collecting, just a lot of fun stuff. So why don't you kick us off, Mike, and tell us about yourself?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. If it wasn't for you, I'd probably would have remained in the shadows. But you're the Howard Stern of card podcast. So thanks a lot.
Yeah,
We
for sure,
appreciate it.
man. Thanks for joining.
Of course. So my story is started collecting as a kid. Pretty much lived in the card shops. I'm from Orlando, Florida, and we had a card shop called Big League Sports Cards, and it became really famous for having this event called Pack Wars. And it was essentially they'd open up wax boxes, and you could buy a pack for $1, $2, and the place would be packed. They'd have Hooters girls serving Papa John's pizza. It was crazy, and the guy ended up becoming like a card shop owner, became a rep for Topps, and I think he's still doing stuff down there, but I haven't been in a while. So that kind of like brought me in, like the showmanship of this card shop owner and having these, not having to buy these expensive wax boxes so I could, buy single packs. And I would say my collecting peaked maybe in 96, 97. It was during Kobe Bryant's rookie year, and then it kind of tapered off through 99, and I kind of went dark until 2004 when the Magic drafted Dwight Howard. Kind of picked up the collecting again, collected through the championship run, and then went dark again after he left, and then picked up maybe 2017 when my discretionary income came into play, and then was like blown away with all the prices. And so from there on out, I was like, well, I have this extra money, kind of want to get back into collecting, pick up these cards that I couldn't afford as a kid. And that's kind of set off this like downward giant snowball of collecting to today.
So you're primarily focused on Michael Jordan today, but you used to collect Dwight Howard, right?
I collected a lot of Dwight Howard. I was big on Sebastian Telfair. I was trying to ride the high school players coming out of into the draft. So from Kobe to Jermaine O'Neal to Kevin Garnett, Dwight, Telfair, that was my focus. And then because I couldn't afford Jordans as a kid, but now things have changed, and it's a whole different world out there, as we all know.
So are you collecting like all things Jordan, or is there something specific that you focus on? Because it's pretty wide there.
Yeah, the Jordan market's pretty wide. I focus on playing card years. I really like the Fleer Skybox related issues. Shout out to the podcast that you did with Arena Design. That was incredible. I mean, she's become I don't even know what word to describe her as, but she'll be bearing that torch forever, whatever title we want to give her.
The godmother.
Yeah, she's incredible. Hopefully there's a follow-up at some point.
I love how much attention that one is starting to get recently. Just like her coming out more and showing more stuff. It's been awesome.
Yeah, she's got a wealth of knowledge too that I'm sure it's hard to share in one podcast. It would probably take, a 10-hour documentary series.
Yeah. I definitely want to at least get her husband on and then maybe do a part 3 with both of them or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So why don't you jump in and just start showing off some cards, give people a taste of some of the Jordan stuff that you do have.
Okay. Well, I'd like to show off this first one, which was I got in a trade from our friends at House of Jordans. And if you're the Howard Stern of podcasts, I would call him the Zach Lowe of podcasts. The analytical takes.
I really like that analogy. That's a really good analogy.
So you guys have a nice 1-2 punch going.
I'll be Bill Simmons. He can be Zach Lowe.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good. Yeah, because Bill Simmons is he's like the fire starter.
Yeah.
Instead of poke the bear.
Yeah.
So that's This one to me is kind of the apex of Jordan inserts for me. Just when it was released, it's die cutting, it's iconic aesthetic, and I think it's gotten its due. But I had to let go of a really nice card to get this one, but it was well worth it in the long run. So this is probably my favorite card of all time. This one right here has found a special place in my heart. And I think it's somewhat underrated because it's a true serial numbered base card, but it could be considered a parallel because of the whole confusing row 3 to 1. I'm not really sure what it is, but I think its value gets hurt because there's a legacy edition that's serial number to 150. So those two kind of cannibalize each other, but it's a very cool card, and one, I think it's the only base card that's technically also parallel that's serial numbered. So it's kind of in this gray area, but one of my favorites. This one, I don't know if you've ever owned the penny of this, but the Scoring Kings Plus, a very nice rare parallel that's, upon first glance hard to overlook, but really hard to find and really condition sensitive.
Are you big on the grading? Do you try to focus on mint or better stuff?
I tend to focus on just mint. So, for example, this Hot Shots 9.5, as much as I love this card, I would, in a heartbeat, if I could trade this down, if you will, for a PSA 9, and then take the additional funds that I got from that and reinvest that into another Jordan that I really liked. So it's kind of an ebb and flow of collecting, as you know.
Yeah.
And PSA 9 in particular is kind of what I like. But with grading, like, you can find a PSA 9 that looks like a 10 or looks like an 8, or a PSA 8 that looks like a 9.
Yeah.
So I try and ignore the grade as much as possible and focus on the condition of the card. But, if it's that sweet spot of it looks like a 9 and it's a 9, that's what I'm after.
PSA 9 is like the perfect sweet spot for collecting, in my opinion. It's just like you can get such nice cards at, huge discounts in a lot of cases, and it's great for building a collection.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes the gems are a little overpriced.
Yeah.
The 9s can be just priced right. And then if you can get a raw card that looks like a 9, grade it and get the grade you're looking for.
Yeah. I feel like a 9 is the collector's card and a 10 is the investor card.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine going for 10s for all these cards that I really love. I'd have half the collection probably.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because you can show off like kind of the depth of your collection with 9s, and you can go a lot further, like you said.
Yeah.
So how do you relate basketball to your card collection? Do you watch a lot of basketball? Do you enjoy collecting to better connect yourself to basketball? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do. Basketball has kind of been a crutch for my career. Started off when I was a kid, where in high school I would skip school and I'd come back home to watch NBA TV. I wasn't hanging out smoking cigarettes. I was watching Game 4 of the '95 NBA Finals. And that's kind of just evolved as I've gotten older, and it's turned into a career to the point now where I don't think a night doesn't go by where I don't watch a basketball game, or, all day really is spent, on the side looking at cards, reducing work productivity. But it's, following box scores and watching highlights and watching the Magic. It definitely keeps those two things symbiotic with each other. Collecting.
What do you do for work? What do you do for work?
Right now I work for a t-shirt company, and we have an NBA license and a player's license as well. So I'm constantly working with the teams, just at the team shop that's at the stadium, to come up with assortments that are exclusive to them. So you live in Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
If you go to Phoenix, if you go to a Suns game, you'll see the brand is called Homage. We have these really cool NBA Jam t-shirts. And so with the Suns, we have Steve Nash, Amari. I don't know why we came out with this. In fact, I'm going to send you one. But we have a Penny Jason Kidd NBA Jam t-shirt.
Oh, hell yeah.
I think they played maybe like half a season together.
Yeah.
Before, Penny's injuries took their toll. But
I think I've seen those shirts on like Instagram ads.
Yeah, we might have targeted you. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's awesome. Those shirts are sick. Those shirts are awesome. So I did hear you used to work for UCF basketball.
Yeah, that was quite an experience because when I was enrolling at UCF, I had no awareness that Jeffrey Jordan, Michael's oldest son, was set to attend and transfer from Illinois because one of his friends had signed with UCF. And then when I got there, Marcus also signed. That was his youngest son. So throughout the season, um, both like Marcus and Jeff Rossen, by the way, really down to earth. Marcus has a sneaker store in Orlando called Trophy. I think it's called Trophy Room, where he has a bunch of released photos of his family that he has all over the wall, and he gets exclusive releases with Jordan shoes. But his dad, the GOAT, would show up on occasion, and you would know like earlier in the day because security would be at every door around the gym. The coach Jordan would come in and talk to the coaches, and sometimes he would bring his friends. He brought Charles Oakley once. He brought Shot a couple times, and you would just go in the office and he'd have his his feet kicked up on the table, talking to the coach about the game ahead or whatever. So, and at the game, it was even crazy because all people would care about is what Jordan would be doing during the game. So anytime Marcus or Jeff would score the ball or make a turnover or whatever, everyone would turn to the press box or skybox where he was sitting to see what his reaction would be, and he would just sit there and show no reaction, either to a good play or a bad play. He was very professional about it.
Did you work for what did you do? What was your capacity with the basketball team?
I was just a student manager, shagging rebounds, 4 hours a day, for practices, and then if guys wanted to come in after class or whatever, he'd show up at 10 p.m. and rebound for an hour. And you had other Gatorade and towels and all that stuff.
Did you ever have any encounter with the GOAT?
Yeah, I got to meet him one day after practice. They finally decided to arrange like a group meet. So we all lined up in a row, one at a time. And then when I was like 5 people away, I was fine. 4 people away, my heart started to beat a little faster. 3, 2, 1. And then my heart was racing and I panicked. And it's embarrassing to say, but the only thing I said to him was, "My name is Mike too." And he goes, "You look good out there, kid. Keep up the hard work." And that was it. And I went out to the common area where everyone else was at behind closed doors, and we all were just like, shaking our hands, doing this, like we couldn't believe it. Like we'd see him from afar, but for the first time ever, we got to meet him. And it was.
What did you want to say to him?
I don't even know. It was like an impromptu meeting after practice. We had no heads up like I did with this podcast, so there was no prep the meeting to go, but it was a nice present from the coaching staff, and who knows, maybe that's one reason why, I've gravitated towards Jordan in my, third life of collecting.
So you didn't have any Jordan cards at that time when you met him? This has been since then?
Oh yeah, I had 0 cards at the time.
That's crazy, man. So what else about basketball? Is there any other players you'd want to collect, or is it just Jordan because he's the GOAT? Like, what other interests do you have within the hobby?
Well, I really like shooting guards, so I've dabbled in Kobe. I just think they have, for whatever reason, they tend to have the most appeal, and I think in the long term, fans tend to appreciate them more. Especially if they're high flyers and won championships. So Kobe's in the category. I've begun to collect him. I think another guy who I'm going to start to collect is Dwayne Wade. And I think, due to recency bias, his cards are undervalued. If you go back and look at what his cards were worth when he was at his peak with the big 3, they were worth a lot more. So I think, I don't know what, there's some sort of maturation period from when a guy's career tapers off. Maybe he doesn't have the last 2 years of his career, and then people tend to appreciate him, over the long term. So I think he'll fall into that category. Other than that, I don't really have, players I collect, but again, the whole arena design thing makes me want to pick up one of every card they design, even if it's a player I don't collect, even if it's like a Shaq card or a Mutombo card, just to appreciate, their art, more or less.
Yeah. it's gonna be tough with all the Jordan stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There's PMG Red will never be in my collection,
Too
so I might have
expensive.
to settle for Ronnie Cycli or somebody.
Yeah, the PNG Red Jordan is like getting a little bit out of reach for most people. It's just so expensive.
Yeah,
The Dwayne Wade nugget is really good. I hope people are paying attention to the Dwayne Wade stuff. He's got to be one of the most undervalued like historical players for cards. I think, especially that he had that period of time where he was just like a solo artist. You know, like Shaq was there, but he was basically their number one guy, and he was like dominating. People kind of only remember the LeBron years, but he was like a fantastic player in a championship team for a long time.
yeah, I agree. I think your guy Penny would have gotten there had it not been for the injuries, but there's still such an appreciation for his cards despite his shortened career. I think
Yeah,
the marketing with Nike and just the '90s. It's like that perfect recipe for guys like Penny and Grant
yeah,
Hill.
yeah. I think Dwayne Wade's a good one. That's interesting. So, what about like, what's your like? Let's just say, what's your Mount Rushmore of basketball? Like, what's your top four for hobby related?
This is something I think about a lot. For whatever reason, just I like to instead of top five. My thing's always Mount Rushmore because everyone wants to do a top five. But when you got to trim one, it makes it a little more tougher. But I think in this case, Jordan, I think LeBron has already cemented himself as a Mount Rushmore player for basketball cards. I think Kobe's there now too. He's certainly we've seen a surge in his prices. And then for the fourth guy, I'd love to get your opinion on this. I think there's so many candidates between Duncan, because of his rookie year being in the '90s and what
Yeah,
titles and MVPs, and he's in those like key releases that are so highly pursued. I think you could make a case for Shaq, Kevin Garnett. It's too bad Larry Bird and Magic Johnson didn't play in the '90s because I'm sure they would have some pretty sweet cards that'd be worth a lot. Luka is like, if you want to count current players, he's probably that guy now. But um, the more I think about it, I think that fourth guy is up for grabs. I don't think we have one yet. I think it's yet to be chiseled.
yeah. Can I give you a couple other names that come to my mind?
Sure. Yeah.
Curry.
Ooh, that's
I
a good
think
one.
Curry is really great for hobby. He's an exciting player. People relate to him. He's got really cool cards, and he's kind of like the Panini only guy of that group. He's like the Panini representative. The other one is Wilt because I feel like there's not a lot of representation of vintage stuff in there, so it'd be cool to have Wilt. Maybe Dennis Rodman, Allen Iverson. Those guys are big for hobby.
I think
I
I
like
think
Duncan.
Curry actually is the best chance.
I think so
Thinking
too.
about it a little bit more.
Yeah, his prices are kind of dipping just because he's been out and off people's radar. But the Luca one is interesting. It's obviously fresh. That one's gonna take some more time.
Yeah, he's too fresh. He's too fresh. But I think Curry, like if his career ended today, he'd have the accolades to warrant being on Mount Rushmore. And 10 years from now, I'm sure the prices will reflect that.
His
Even though
his NTRPA is definitely highly sought after. It's a big card.
yeah, it's a monster card.
So you mentioned to me there's like a thread on Blowout that you really enjoyed. So it seems like you have an appreciation kind of for more of the different styles of cards that are out there, not just like the high end cards that most people talk about. Can you talk about that? Like what it is about the different like sets and releases that interest you, and some of like their factoids that come out?
Yes. So this thread that you just alluded to, I'm not sure who the originator of the thread is, but it's called Sharing the Admiral. And basically, this person has broken down every single product release, including breaking down the inserts that David Robinson is in, and it's just really beautiful and eloquently written breakdown. It's not like surface level stuff. He's really gone and posted pictures. I encourage everyone to read it. It's almost like reading a really well written article, and he's kind of chronicling the history of every David Robinson card. And a lot of those cards also had Jordan was released in those sets, and Shaq, Penny, like all of your favorite players. So if you're looking for a good read, I highly recommend reading it. I just stumbled upon it one night, and it was like a book I couldn't put down for whatever reason. But you know, I'm sure there's someone out there who would. I implore someone. This is a challenge. Someone to do that for Jordan cards, to break down every Jordan card in the same manner that this person did.
So
But
this
there's a
was
lot of interesting collectors.
it was Frisbee Steve. I actually met him at National.
Oh, nice.
Super nice guy, really, really great collector, and he just loves David Robinson cards. So, yeah, in that thread, he just kind of like details out a bunch of awesome cards that he has and gets really in depth. So it's a great read. The Jordan card one will be interesting. I feel like that would be a great like book almost.
Seriously, like if that was a coffee table book, I'd buy it. In a heartbeat.
There's so many like great sets from those 90s that not a lot of people know the details on. So to have those is pretty cool. And you, like you said, you can kind of relate the David Robinson facts to your player, right? Like if the details are more about the sets.
Yeah.
So you have some other Jordan cards to show. What else you got?
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll just use these as a case study. But so like when we look at the scarcity of a card, I think one thing that probably gets overlooked the most is if it's a hobby release, if it's a retail release, or if it's a hobby retail release. So a lot of times we'll just look at the odds. So for example, two of my favorite cards also happen to be part of this case study. But so the 96 Thrill Seekers design, graded PSA 9, which you know, they say it's lenticular, which I'd never heard of that word until I started collecting cards. But so this card came out in 96. It's one in every 240 hobby packs only. It wasn't a retail release. And the total pop is 139 between PSA and BGS. Conversely, this is the 1997 version, which, you know, it's also fun to like chronicle the evolution of a set. Completely different from the 96 release, but this one came out in 97, a little bit harder to find, one in every 288 packs, and it's a hobby retail release. And total pop between the two, PSA and BGS, is 202. So this one, while easier to pull, was only released in hobby packs, and there's roughly 60 less graded in the market. So it's a much harder card to find. I think that sometimes gets overlooked, you know, when looking at scarcity and, you know, just trying to comb through all these different releases, you know, throughout the years, because it's not much of a thing anymore, in my opinion. Like, you know, the inserts, hobby versus retail, as it was back then. You know, retail was kind of like looked at as being an inferior product back in the 90s. But there's a lot of great retail-only inserts. So, like, if you come through an old Beckett and you look at some of your favorite inserts, you'll realize that some of them are retail-only, which, you know, you can only get, like, at 7-Eleven or Walmart. And those are much, much harder to find sometimes than, you know, the ones that were released via hobby. So just little things like that are interesting.
So does that change how you collect it all? Like, do you like to look at what they initially came out of and whether it was hobby or retail or both? Is that's something that changes how you collect?
I think I still collect for the aesthetic. That's the number one factor. But it's just interesting to note these little details. You know, when, you know, if I have $500 to spend and there's two cards that are going for, you know, around the same price, you know, which one am I going to look for them, you know, first? Just sometimes determining factors, you know, when the duty calls.
What are some like random retail only ones that you can think of? I haven't really researched any of this kind of stuff.
So like the 90, I don't have it for show, but like 96 Court Masters, which is the acetate, another word I never use, you know, before collecting cards. That one was a retail only release. And I think that was one in every 180. There's like a Dish and Swish from 97 Hoops was retail only. So, you know, like if I remember correctly, we didn't collect retail, you know, as a kid. I focused on hobby. It was fun to go to the hobby shop and collect the hobby releases. So most of the retail releases were overlooked from my perspective, because I didn't collect, the retail packs. But
Yeah.
the more you dig into it, the information never ends with things that we may have missed. There's this information that, is out there.
Yeah. I mean, some of these like hoops cards, there's like some really nice hoops, uh, Jordan parallels and inserts that, came out of retail only. And that kind of stuff was like $1 a pack at Walmart back when we were kids. And now some of these are like really highly sought after. They're condition sensitive because of the nature of how they were released and like kids buying them and stashing them away. So there's a lot of interesting tidbits towards like the retail only, I think.
Yeah, like Slam Bams is probably one of the most sought after Jordan cards, and it's so rare because they're so hard to find because it was a retail release, and like you said, mainly ripped by kids who it was a shiny card for them, but who knows where it ended up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be drawn from that, even with modern stuff. Like there's some like products that come out that kind of slide under the radar from Panini that I think long term could be ignored today and sought after in the future just based on aesthetic or rarity or different things like that, like retail only or hobby. And everyone's only paying attention to Prism and National Treasures. Like there's definitely more out there, so it's kind of interesting to try to apply it to what we have today.
Yeah, imagine if you knew the backstory to the thrift store LeBron Chrome Gold Refractor, like how it ended up at the thrift store auction.
Yeah,
like that's probably an awesome story in its own right.
Yeah. Do you do any modern product?
I'm trying to. It hasn't hooked me yet, but I think I like the Revolution stuff. It's great to look at online. I've never purchased anything, so I think I got to make the purchase first, see how it goes, and then if I like it, because I need something. The new stuff does look really good. Panini either gets a good rap or a bad rap, depending on who you ask. But if you can like sift through all this stuff that they produce and find what you like, I think that's what I have to do. I just got to find what I like. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Any players? Is Chris trying to get you on Luka?
No, I've floated some players his way. Like once a week, I'll think of a player that I want to collect. Like I think last week it was Donovan Mitchell. This week it'll probably change, but I don't know. I think he wants to corner the Luka market.
Yeah. So you seem very like thoughtful in who you collect. You don't just like start collecting every week. You're sort of like sitting back a little bit, waiting. Like you just got into Kobe, you're thinking about Wade, and you're not really jumping in. Is that something you intentionally do, where you're kind of more thoughtful about what you collect?
Yeah, it's very intentional, but like LeBron is a guy I'd like to collect as well. I just love guys who've reached the top of the mountain with their playing careers, and 100 years from now they'll be mentioned every time when people talk about NBA basketball. So it's hard. I don't really like to. It's hard for me to forecast current players or prospect guys. It's just I don't know. When I was a kid, it was much easier. I loved Sean Kemp and Grant Hill and Alonzo Mourning and Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. But as I've gotten older, just the stuff I love, I want to go back and get that first, I think, before jumping into the new stuff. I think that's what my hobby fate is.
Yeah, we'll I would hope people pay attention to sort of like your slower approach to it. I think that's the right way to do it. If you just jump in, you can get burned easily and kind of get tired of all your different players you're collecting, and you just kind of like fizzle out. So I personally appreciate how you're approaching it.
It's certainly overwhelming. Just if I type in Panini and Donovan Mitchell, I have no idea what's what. Even though I feel like I'm familiar with every release from the 90s, it's super overwhelming to jump into the new stuff. And I feel like it has to be the same for someone who collects new stuff that's trying to jump into the 90s, trying to figure out what's what.
Yeah, you can't know it all, so you kind of have to pick your spots. I do have a fun question. So you and I are both in this Instagram chat with Michael Jordan collectors. I don't know why I'm in this chat, but that's a different question. I haven't really talked to anyone other than Chris about it, so I kind of want to just get your take on like what you think of the chat, and just kind of like what you get from it and how much you enjoy it.
Well, so you've been a big influence in my um, public display of my collecting, and Chris has been as well. So Chris was one of the first guys that I started chatting with about Jordan cards probably a couple years ago, and I think it might have been his idea to form this Jordan chat that he deemed like not necessarily the top, like the most expensive collectors, but the ones that he thinks brings the most insight, unique insight, and adds to the overall collective conversation of Jordan cards. And you certainly deserve a spot because you have a pretty nice Jordan card yourself. I think that's the criteria. Have one nice Jordan card and you're in. Plus, good thoughts on the hobby.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's a fun chat because topics pop up unannounced. They can go north or south. You never know where they're going to go. But it's fun to be a part of like a micro group within the community.
Yeah.
Especially considering like I haven't met anyone. Hopefully I can meet you in person one day, and Chris and the rest of the crew, and all the other great collectors out there. Hopefully at the National this year. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be a part of, and almost feels privileged in a way.
Yeah. Are you going to be at the National in Atlantic City?
The plan is to go there. I just gotta cross off the dates as soon as we hang up. Make sure. Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I'll be there. I got to start looking at hotels and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun show. I think it just feels like each year. I don't know if it's just like me and the community and stuff, but I just feel like each year National kind of just gets like bigger and better, and we just keep adding more people, and I keep seeing like more people join the hobby and adding to the content, and I don't see that many people leaving, so it's just kind of getting better every year.
Yeah, and I think the more content you guys put out, and the more we become interconnected, you're going to bring out more shadow collectors like myself, where I don't typically show off cards. Even though I'd like to be involved in the hobby, and I have like a separate account for my card. Even though like the Jordan chat that we're in, that's not where I show off cards. That's a separate account. But just keep. You guys are incredible. Keep doing what you're doing. It's great for for everybody as a whole. It really is.
All right, Mike. Well, I really appreciate the chat. This is fun. I'll post the link to that blowout forums, and then I want your Instagram handle, so we'll post that to the YouTube channel, and people can look at some cards and stuff.
Cool.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.